For the sake of everybody here, and for all the farmers who are stuck at home today, paralysed by a fog of despair over what's been foisted upon them, I beg of the government to be big, to accept that this was rushed through, it wasn't thought out, and it's a mistake. That's the big thing to do, admit it, and back...
Jeremy Clarkson isn't just driving cars, he's running over Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves with savage words sharper than a tyre blowout on the M25. Expect epic burns, brutal truths and enough chaos to make even the BBC blush. What did Clarkson say that left Starmer and Reeves speechless? Spoiler alert, it's not about horsepower. Stick around, because this verbal demolition is way more entertaining than your average political debate.
So what's your message to the new government? Do you think they get the kind of rural economy at all?
No, I don't think any of them have set foot outside Kentish Town for the last 35 years. No, they're a hopeless bunch.
So would you invite Keir to your pub, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister?
No, he's banned. He's the first person to be banned. He's actually on a board in the hall. He's banned.
Why? What have you got against him?
Hello? I thought you were running a news operation.
Okay.
He hasn't done much to endear himself to me yet. Well, we'll have a look at farming. It all might turn around, you never know.
Jeremy Clarkson has done it again, this time taking his famous British Bulldog approach and unleashing it on none other than Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves. And let's just say, it wasn't a gentle nudge with a feather duster, it was more like revving a V8 engine at full throttle while doing a burnout on their political careers. Imagine the Top Gear guy, known for tearing apart cars with gleeful abandon, turning that same energy onto the leaders of the opposition party. You could almost hear the collective gulp from Labour HQ as Clarkson fired up his verbal supercharged engine.
He says Britain, in the past few years, has, in his opinion, fallen off a cliff. And he said that now we have hit rock bottom. He basically says nothing works. Potholes in our roads, terrible services, the NHS, complete mess. Nothing works well in this country. And we've fallen off a cliff, we've hit rock bottom. Who does Mr. Clarkson blame?
Now, Starmer, for those who've been living under a rock or blissfully ignoring UK politics, is the Labour leader trying to navigate his party through the murky waters of British politics. It's like watching someone trying to drive a Reliant Robin on the Autobahn. Awkward, unstable, and often leaving people wondering how it's even still running. Meanwhile, Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, has been making economic announcements with the enthusiasm of someone trying to sell used tyres during a recession. Faint, hesitant, and lacking any real grip.
He says this is all down to socialism, and then he narrows in on our socialist leader, Keir Starmer, who he said manages to be annoying even when he's not being annoying. But I just thought it was an interesting thing to say. And I think there is a sense among millions of people in this country that something's going wrong with this country. We have gone downhill. It seems to be a worse place to live than, shall we say, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. I blame the Tories for the decline a great deal. But I do think he's got a good point that now the socialists have got their hands on the helm. We're in big trouble, and he's...
Clarkson's attack on Starmer wasn't just your garden variety criticism. No, it was a full-on demolition job. He painted Starmer as the political equivalent of a car stuck in neutral, revving loudly but going nowhere. No charisma, no spark, just a lot of noise and exhaust fumes. And in true Clarkson fashion, he made sure to highlight how Starmer's leadership style comes across as so dull and lifeless. Even the famously monotonous British weather feels like a roller coaster by comparison.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Clarkson, and in the next Parliament I'd like to see the government prioritising farming. We've been asked to diversify, and when we try to do that, the local authorities tell us we can't. That means, well, we've been strongly opposed to stop that too.
Jeremy?
What?
What's happening here?
I'm banning your daughter.
Why is she banned?
Because she moaned because she couldn't have Tabasco in her Bloody Mary. So she's banned.
Keir Starmer, James May, Matty Hornby, you're all banned.
And then there's Rachel Reeves. Clarkson's take on her economic policies: imagine trying to get a supercar to perform with the handbrake permanently engaged. That's how he described Reeves' cautious and, let's face it, painfully bland economic plans. According to him, her approach was so timid and overcautious that even a sensible pensioner with a piggy bank could come up with something more exciting. Reeves was accused of being out of touch, like someone trying to navigate the latest technology with a rotary phone, stuck in the past while the rest of the economy speeds on ahead. What really sets Clarkson apart from the usual political commentators is his utter disdain for political correctness and his love for calling things as he sees them. Often brutal. When he talks about Starmer's lack of connection with voters, it's not just an observation, it's an indictment. The guy's leadership is about as inspiring as a rainy Monday morning commute with no coffee. And Reeves' economic policies? They might as well have been drawn up by a committee of accountants, all arguing over who gets the biggest stapler. But as much as Clarkson's takedown feels like a high-speed crash, it's not entirely without merit. Let's talk facts. Labour has been struggling in the polls, and the public's appetite for their brand of politics seems as tepid as a pint left out in the sun. Starmer's public image?
I've got a photograph here of Britain's idea of infrastructure investment, okay? It's a T-junction that they've designed for reasons known only to themselves to look like a roundabout.
And let me guess, it cost 100 grand to do it.
No, it was £500,000, yes.
Of course it was, yeah.
Some paving slabs, which
Exactly.
is what that is.
Anyway, Dubai's idea of infrastructure investment is a little bit different because what they're planning is this, the Hyperloop. It's like a tube train, and it'll go from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, which is about 100 miles away, in 12 minutes.
12 minutes?
12 minutes.
Well, let's just say if he were a car, he'd be that generic silver sedan everyone forgets about in the parking lot. Safe, reliable, but utterly forgettable. Meanwhile, Reeves' economic announcements have been met with the enthusiasm reserved for dry toast. Inflation, unemployment, and public spending remain hot topics, but her solutions have done little to convince anyone that Labour has the horsepower to handle them. Clarkson's blunt style cuts through the usual political mumbo-jumbo, but it also raises the question, does this kind of savage commentary actually help the public understand the issues better, or is it just entertainment masquerading as analysis? After all, politics is often as messy as one of Clarkson's infamous car crashes, but does mocking the drivers get us anywhere closer to fixing the road? Jeremy Clarkson's smackdown on Keir Starmer wasn't just a casual jab, it was a full-throttle, high-octane roast that left Starmer looking like a car that stalled at the starting line and then forgot where the accelerator was. Clarkson painted him as the political equivalent of a beige hatchback, functional but about as inspiring as a soggy packet of crisps at a fancy dinner party. Starmer's supposed leadership was described as limp, uninspiring, and desperately lacking the kind of charisma that actually gets people off the couch and voting. If charisma was horsepower, Starmer would be running on fumes, and Clarkson didn't hold back on reminding everyone of that.
I'm here to support the farmers. It's that simple. So they need all the help they can get, really. If she'd have wanted to take out the likes of James Dyson and investment bankers and so on, she would have used a sniper's rifle. But she's used a blunderbuss and she's hit all this lot. It was, as I understand it, it was a very rushed last-minute decision. And I think, we all make mistakes in life, and I think it's time for them to say, you know what, we this one up a bit and back down.
Clarkson's central beef with Starmer was not just about style over substance. Oh no, it was about the catastrophic failure to connect with the electorate. You know that feeling when you're at a party and someone's trying to tell a joke but it falls flat so hard that even the potted plants look embarrassed? That's Starmer's public persona, according to Clarkson. He's that guy, fumbling the punchline while the rest of the room checks their phone. Whether it's his speeches, interviews or media appearances, Clarkson claimed Starmer comes across like a politician who's read a book on how to lead but skipped the chapter on actually being likeable or relatable. It's one thing to have a policy, another to convince people you care. Clarkson's point was crystal clear. Starmer is driving the Labour Party down a bumpy, pothole-ridden road, but he forgot to fix the steering wheel. And let's not forget Rachel Reeves, who Clarkson likened to someone trying to pilot a yacht using an IKEA manual. Confusing, overly complicated, and prone to capsizing at the slightest breeze. Clarkson wasn't shy about branding her economic plans as timid to the point of invisibility. His analogy? Imagine a racing car with the handbrake stuck on, limping around the track with all the flair of a cautious pensioner avoiding speed bumps. Reeves was accused of being so overly cautious that her economic proposals might as well come with a giant "handle with care" sticker. Instead of bold moves, Clarkson said she was stuck in neutral, afraid to shake things up or offer anything remotely exciting. Her policies in his eyes were the kind that would put even the most enthusiastic accountant to sleep.
Why are you here, Mr. Clarkson?
Well, because I'm here to support farmers.
Right. Are you angry?
It's difficult to be angry on somebody else's behalf. That's like being... Yes, no, I'm not angry on someone else's behalf.
Right. So it's not about you. It's not about your farm and the fact that you bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax.
Classic BBC there. Classic. Oh yeah. It's not the fact that I bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax. The fact.
You told the Sunday Times in 2021 that's why you bought it. Sorry?
Clarkson's disdain for political correctness was on full display throughout this verbal demolition. For him, political commentary shouldn't be a delicate tea party where you tiptoe around feelings. No, it should be a turbocharged drag race where the truth is as blunt and unfiltered as a sledgehammer to the kneecaps. He mocked the usual political doublespeak and spin, emphasising the need for straightforward, no-nonsense solutions. According to Clarkson, if something's rubbish, call it rubbish. If a leader can't lead, point it out without sugarcoating. And if a politician's economic plan sounds like a bedtime story designed to lull voters into a coma, then it deserves to be roasted in public. Now, as entertaining as Clarkson's tirade is, how much of it holds water when we park it next to the cold hard facts? First up, polling numbers. Labour's struggles in recent months have been painfully clear, like a car failing its MOT repeatedly but still trying to hit the motorway. Poll after poll showed the party lagging behind, with voters seemingly hesitant to hand over the keys. Starmer's approval ratings hovered in the doldrums, and his inability to inspire confidence was a real concern for anyone hoping Labour would make a comeback. It's not just media chatter. Public opinion surveys have confirmed that voters aren't exactly lining up to cast their ballots for him. Whether that's due to policy, personality, or plain old bad timing, it's undeniable that Starmer hasn't ignited a rallying cry.
Okay, so, as we all know, everyone down there, you know a tractor. £200,000 for a medium-sized one. A combine, £500,000. All the equipment costs a fortune. And if you try to price what you're selling to accommodate that, there's just a lot of moaning. You get people saying, well, I shouldn't pay that. I can get a chicken from abroad. Yeah, you can. But it's so full of chlorine, it tastes like a swimming pool with a beak. And then you've got the environmentalists endlessly shouting at you.
And what about Reeves? Inflation, unemployment and public spending, the economic trifecta that any chancellor or shadow chancellor must wrestle with, have been the backdrop for her cautious approach. Inflation has been the political equivalent of a stubborn-engined warning light flashing incessantly, and Reeves' policies aimed to tread carefully to avoid rocking the financial boat. However, critics argue that her approach lacked the guts and creativity needed to get the economy roaring again. Instead of bold fixes, her plans came across as more about damage control than proactive leadership. Sure, caution is sensible when you're driving in a fog, but when the whole country needs a turbo boost, being overly timid just leaves you trailing behind. Looking at Starmer's record, it's a mixed bag. He has managed some successes in opposition, holding the government accountable and steering the party away from more extreme positions. But the glaring failure has been his inability to translate that into electoral momentum. Leadership isn't just about policy acumen, It's about connecting emotionally with voters and showing the kind of conviction that turns heads. Clarkson's critique that Starmer lacks this spark is backed up by the general sense that his public persona feels manufactured rather than authentic.
Keir Starmer and Keir Starmer's government, but do you agree with what he's saying, that there is this pervasive sense that Britain has somehow fallen off a cliff into an abyss of decline, and that we've now hit rock bottom? What do you feel, Rafe?
Look, I don't care if you're left wing or you're right wing, if you're woke or unwoke. You'd have to have lived in a cave for the past few years not to know that Jeremy Clarkson is absolutely right. Britain is broke.
So does Clarkson's blunt style add clarity or just stoke controversy? It's a question that divides opinions. For some, his no-holds-barred approach cuts through political doublespeak, delivering a welcome reality check amid the usual spin. It's like a breath of fresh air or a roaring engine disrupting a quiet library. For others, Clarkson's style risks oversimplifying complex issues and reducing political debate to a reality TV showdown. There's a fine line between sharp insight and sensationalism, and Clarkson often teeters right on it. But let's be honest, political commentary could use more engine revving and less polite nodding these days. At the end of the day, Clarkson's takedown was more than just entertainment. It forced a spotlight on the very real challenges facing Starmer and Reeves. It reminded everyone that politics isn't just about policies on paper, it's about leadership that resonates, plans that excite, and personalities that can fire up a nation. Whether Clarkson's critique will spark change or just add to the noise remains to be seen, but one thing's certain: when Clarkson points a finger, you can bet it's got a V8 engine behind it, and it's not afraid to leave some tyre mark. The reactions to Clarkson's verbal assault have been as varied as a mixed bag of snacks at a motorway service station. Some have praised his honesty, calling it a refreshing dose of reality in a world overloaded with political spin and jargon.
I mean, Clarkson says in this interview in the Telegraph, he said, for example, London's really suffering, I think. You see streets and think, God, this was thriving not that long ago. Now it's all boarded up. Or charity shops. As you walk around for the first time in all of London, you're conscious about not being on your phone. Be careful. It's a big change. It's socialism. The sewage doesn't work. Mobile phone coverage has got worse. And the potholes. He goes on to say, I know I'm sounding like an old person now, but it is shocking. I don't know what they do with the money. Well, I would say...
Others have accused him of oversimplifying complex issues and being more interested in spectacle than substance. Social media erupted with memes, GIFs and hot takes, turning Clarkson's comments into a viral storm. The public loved the fireworks, but the politicians? Well, they kept their heads down and avoided fueling the fire. This whole spectacle also highlights how celebrity voices like Clarkson's influence political discourse nowadays. When someone known for racing cars and making cheeky jokes weighs in on politics with the same gusto, it blurs the lines between serious debate and entertainment. It's like putting a comedian behind the wheel of a parliamentary hearing, sometimes hilarious, sometimes cringeworthy, but always unpredictable. Clarkson's blistering takedown isn't just some cheeky banter from a famous petrolhead, it's a perfect storm of celebrity influence crashing into the already chaotic traffic jam of UK politics. When a man known for smashing cars turns his gaze on politicians, it's like handing the keys to a demolition derby driver and watching the sparks fly. Celebrity commentary has this magical power. It grabs headlines, fuels social media storms, and turns political debate into must-watch reality TV. But here's the kicker. Does it actually help politicians lead better, or does it just add more potholes to their already bumpy ride?
In case you're trying to narrow me down, anything but Corbyn. I mean, I lived through the 70s. I know what socialism is, and I've seen it at work around the world in places like Cambodia and Venezuela and what have you. It doesn't work, and it dangerously doesn't work. But you know, when he goes, with these glasses like this, no, you can't even arrange these. For the many, not the few. And everyone goes, oh, that sounds nice, even though his glasses aren't on straight. And buy into it. Whereas, of course, those of us who are old enough to remember just know it's a hopeless, hopeless proposition.
Harsh public takedowns like Clarkson's can be a double-edged sword. On one side, they hold leaders accountable in a way that dry reports and polite interviews never will. They force politicians out of their carefully scripted bubbles and into the messy arena where real voters live. But on the flip side, constant roasting can turn serious leadership into a circus act, making it harder for politicians like Starmer and Reeves to rebuild trust, when every move is under a spotlight sharper than Clarkson's wit. For Starmer and Reeves, this isn't just a roast. It's a reminder of the uphill battle they face to regain public trust and momentum. The challenge isn't just about policies or speeches. It's about breaking through the noise and showing they can lead with both competence and charisma, a combination Clarkson clearly thinks they lack in spades. So, was Clarkson's verbal demolition fair? Maybe. Was it entertaining? Absolutely. It was like watching a fast car crush a pile of old rusty bicycles. Painful for the bikes, mesmerising for everyone else. Now it's up to Starmer and Reeves to decide whether to step on the accelerator and prove Clarkson wrong, or stay stuck in traffic while the critics keep circling. And that, folks, is how Jeremy Clarkson turned political commentary into an extreme sport, leaving Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves as his latest crash victims on the road to nowhere.